Hello, hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Skeptics and Seeker Sunday Sermon Shorts. I plan to make this one pretty short. This is from, I want to say FaithWire. All right. People started manifesting demons. Shocking moments during pastor's historic NYC sermon. Okay, that's the title. Okay. It's a weird one. I don't want to waste a bunch of time with journalistic criticism. This is a weird one. It's clunky to read. I've read it a couple, 3 times, and I don't know. I guess out of masochism, but just trying to understand it and read around some of the stuff. It's almost as if it was written by someone who did not have English as a first language or a third language. And I don't think that's the case, but another part of it is probably because it's the deep end of the charismatic kook pool. I mean, this brand of charismatic, it's all kook all the way down. So that's what you get from FaithWire quite a bit. So let's not be overly shocked by it, but still, if you decide to read this article, and it's pretty short, it's not an easy read. This is about Pastor Mike Signorelli of V1 Church in New York City. I don't know what V1 is all about. But he does his meeting on Easter in Times Square. I don't know what's historic about this. It's not that uncommon for street preachers to do some kind of Times Square demonstration thing. So I'm not sure about that. Once again, this is Christian journalism, though, and truth, forget about it. So you just kind of got to read around it and figure stuff out. But there are really only a handful of things I want to look at in this fairly short article. So let's go ahead and try to pick out a couple of things. By the way, if you're wondering where the grift is, in the middle of the, well, actually not too far down in the article, maybe one and a half paragraphs, watch Stream CBN's new documentary investigating the supernatural, angels and demons. Maybe we'll take a look at that when it comes out, if I can get a version of it for free or some such. But all right, here's the first quote. And again, I know I have trouble reading things sometimes. This isn't me having trouble reading things. It's just written this way. Quote, I was there to preach the gospel. I got up there and just started preaching, he said. And my team came back and said, when you just started the sermon, there were people all over Times Square that started manifesting demons. And our prayer team had to pray for them. I'm just going to pause there. There's one more phrase here before we get a close quote. So it's really kind of hard to say. I mean, I'm looking at the quotation marks and the single quotes. It's still really hard to say when he's talking and when he's quoting his team. But it's immediately confusing. Okay, we know that you're there to preach the gospel. Great. So he gets up there and he starts preaching, And his team came back and said some stuff to him. Did they interrupt the sermon? It wasn't just an earpiece thing. It says they came back and told him some stuff. I'm trying to picture how this is playing out. So he's in Times Square. He's in front of some podium. Some number of people are looking at him, and apparently, I don't know, his team thinks that he can't see what's going on in front of him, but they come back and tell him, I'm guessing during his sermon, that some people all over Times Square were manifesting demons. Now, in case you are wondering what manifesting is, look, my absent French correspondent could share some insight on this if she gave a damn, and I think she probably does not. But look, this is her beat, okay? This was not my brand of Christianity. I've seen it. I have worshipped in individual services every now and then that were crazy and frankly scary as hell. But this is a particularly Pentecostal charismatic type formatting. When you start manifesting something, you start visibly demonstrating something. Something is now happening in the real world in a demonstrable way. And so they're saying people in Times Square, they're starting to manifest. They're manifesting demons. They're manifesting. Are people always manifesting demons in Times Square? How do you know? How can you tell that anything is different happening? Since this is generally a spiritual kind of insight, but when you say, well, they're manifesting, it means that you're now seeing something externally to back up this spiritual reality. But have you ever been to Times Square? Have you walked along Fifth Avenue, Sixth Avenue, outside of Penn Station? Have you spent any amount of time, let's say 10 seconds, in Midtown Manhattan? There are people manifesting all the time. What they're manifesting is their mental illness. Because you've got to work so much harder in New York to get someone to drop you a coin. You could literally walk around naked with your hair on fire and people would just step around you. That's not enough. That's not enough to get people to stop and engage and give you something to get out of their way. So if you think that you know homeless culture, but you've never been to New York or a city like New York or San Francisco, you just don't know. So what I'm saying is, how would he know if people were manifesting demons or just manifesting New York? Now, don't get me wrong. I love New York. If I had infinite dollars, that's where I would spend the rest of my days. I do not. I don't even have enough dollars to get on a freaking Greyhound bus and go there to visit. So, not going to happen. And so I'm not saying anything bad about New York when I tell you this, but if you don't have that experience, that kind of big city experience, um, you would realize that there is a major problem, same with San Francisco, there's a major homelessness problem because big cities attract um, people who can't afford to live there. And there's a major mental illness problem. Huge crossover in the Venn diagram between the homeless and the mentally ill. And mentally ill homeless people in New York perform as if they were on Broadway. In fact, many of them are on Broadway. They're just not inside the theaters. And so, yeah, mental illness is a little bit more of a performance in a place like that than you might imagine. And you know what it would look like, especially if you're a tourist and you were a particular kind of religious nut job, it would look like demon possession. Now, I know the loonies out there are saying that's because it is demon possession. Okay, but this particular preacher, his church is in New York. It's in the city. This isn't anything new. And so one wonders where we get the diagnosis of manifesting demons. But like all such write-ups from this kind of charismatic, you're never going to get useful details to examine a story. In fact, you're not supposed to examine a story. You're not supposed to ask any questions about it. They give you no details on purpose. That's a feature. Because your faith is what carries the story, not the details or whether it's true. So, okay, you're preaching, your team interrupts, people are manifesting. So let's just finish this paragraph because it's almost shocking. It's almost worth this diversion. There were people all over Times Square that started manifesting demons, and our prayer team had to pray for them, even people that were on the fringes. What? Okay. First of all, on the fringes of what? On the fringes of society, culture, on the fringes of religion, on the fringes of the demonic realm. Oh, what fringes are they on? Just set that aside. Whatever the fringes are, these are people that his prayer teams don't usually pray for, apparently. But he had to pray because of these demons. They had no choice. And they even had to pray for those nasty, yucky people on the fringes. What? Okay, let me read it again. I'm just going to read the whole paragraph. And you tell me. I was there to preach the gospel. I got up there and I just started preaching. And my team came back and said, when you just started the sermon, there were people all over Times Square that started manifesting demons, and our prayer teams had to pray for them, even people that were on the fringes. How are you supposed to read that? I mean, these poor people. It tears my tits off. I feel so bad for these good Christians who are forced to pray for people on the fringes. I honestly don't know. I'm not trying to strawman this article. I have no idea how to read it other than that. All right, so the pastor, known for speaking out on deliverance, said he believes it was the power of God at work. Okay, first of all, when does a preacher not believe that everything is the power of God at work? That's another one of those phrases, especially in charismatic circles, that means nothing. It's just a mouth noise. It means nothing. And that by declaring the gospel message, it became confrontational to the forces of evil. How full of themselves are these nut jobs. They believe that everything is clicking along like normal, but they get up to preach a sermon and the forces of evil feel the confrontational force and have to start fighting back. 'Cause that sermon was so fucking good. So effective. The forces of evil, all the forces of evil, had to come fight against it. Good Christians, real Christianity, folks. All right, not just deliverance. Yeah, it's one of these paragraphs. I'd love to skip it, but I can't. It wasn't just deliverance, though, as Signorelli said. There were also reports of healing and miracles outside of the demonic realm. What? I don't know. I do not. Honestly, this is not a bit. I don't know what the fuck it's talking about. First of all, I'm catching a cold. Sorry about that. Isn't the demonic realm like the whole world? Isn't that because, like, Satan is the god of this world? You remember when Jesus was tempted? He was tempted by someone who had dominion over the world, Satan. Sometimes he has dominion, sometimes God does. It depends on which writer is writing and what story they want to tell. But I literally, honestly, truly don't know in this context what it means to be outside the demonic realm. There were miracles apparently inside the demonic realm, but there were even miracles and healings outside the demonic realm. Maybe, those people on the fringes that they had to pay for were on the fringes of the demonic realm. But what the hell is the demonic realm in this context? I have no idea. You don't either. No one knows. This is the kind of nonsense speak, though, that you get out of Christianity especially when they're talking to each other. This is what conversations often sound like. Here's another one of these paragraphs. I'll let someone else pull it apart. I'll just give it to you. People watching online in hospital beds were, why is "were" in brackets, by the way, claiming that they were receiving healing. People with demons in person that started screaming out, getting prayer. He said it was like pandemonium. And then tourists that didn't even plan on being there telling their kids, we're going to listen to this whole thing, and then accepting Jesus. Yeah, I know. It sounds like someone is writing this who is actively on drugs at the time of their writing, or they're quoting someone who is actively on drugs during the time of it. This is so bad. So, I mean, how do you even pull it apart? You know what's missing from this? Any kind of details that would help you verify the facts. Because when Christians write stories like this, journalistic verification of facts, it is nowhere in sight. They don't give a shit. Like I said, the whole point of this kind of story is to leave it as devoid of facts as possible so that people are not focusing in on things that would make it obvious that this is bullshit. The lack of facts is a feature, not a bug. But look at all the lack of facts we have. People watching online. What were your online numbers? Because you can track that kind of thing. We don't know. In hospital beds, how do you know that? They were claiming that they were receiving healing. Okay. Um, what's the name of one such person? Man, woman, child, dog. What do you get? No, we don't have any details there. Um, do we have any corroborating evidence, like, for instance, a nurse in a hospital or a doctor, better? Yeah, we had checked him in for pneumonia. It was getting worse, and so we were getting ready to intubate them. And when we got back with the equipment, they said they received healing, and we checked them, and the pneumonia was gone. We sent them home. Anything like that? No. It's just a testimony, because Christian testimony, almost all of it, is not corroborable, and I would dare say most of it's bullshit. Okay, I can't corroborate that either, but that's how it's told. It's almost as if that's how they want you to think of it. It's the same kind of stuff when Paul talks about 500 witnesses, um, post-resurrection witnesses. It's just, trust me, bro. That's the whole argument. You notice all the details in Paul's stories that make it impossible to corroborate the story. Impossible. Do we have a name of one of the people so that we can ask them what happened? Do we know where it happened, as in what city, what event, roughly what day, what time? We got nothing. Same here. We got these people just getting healed in hospital beds. I don't know. And that's not the end of a thought so much. There's a comma, and then you pick up. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to miss the detail of what this is trying to say. It's really hard. People with demons in person that started screaming out. All right. So it's all in person, though, isn't it? I mean, I guess they just mentioned people watching online in hospitals that they don't have any corroborating facts for. Uh, Those people are making up, and they're saying also people in person at this revival, this Easter sermon, screaming out. So I guess your audience has got a bunch of people screaming. They did say it was pandemonium. Getting prayer. Okay. I would think that people in a crowd screaming in a pandemonium kind of way would either be getting medical care or getting arrested. That's just me, though. Yeah, it's pandemonium. And, the unnamed tourists, they're just tourists, telling their kids, we're going to listen to this whole thing. And then they accept Christ. Even if you're a believer, when you read a story like this, you should feel lied to. This is embarrassing. I want to go back to one thing before I close this out. There's a little bit more here, but yeah, just gonna go back real quick to that first paragraph. And our prayer team, right? Their prayer team that had to suffer the indignity of praying for people in the fringes. Let me just ask, what is a prayer team? Don't pretend like you know what it is. Really think about it. Because no one has ever defined what a prayer team is, even when I was in church. So, what do you mean by prayer team? Like a team sport? A prayer team. How many people need to be on a prayer team before it's a team, instead of just a couple of people praying? what forms the team, this prayer team. I'm sure you can find some prayer warrior to give you some insight. I don't have any. The affectionate, fervent prayer of the righteous man availeth much. That is from James. The sincere, loving prayer of one righteous person. Why do you need a team? Because the Bible suggests that one will do. Okay. Um, so I don't understand why you have a prayer team out there in the field bunched up. You just have people in your church just be floating in the crowd and silently praying for people as they see quote unquote needs for prayer. But a prayer team, that's a performative kind of thing, like a dance choir. It's not one person quietly dancing in the corner with nobody watching. It's a dance group on stage in front of a bunch of people performing. Oh boy. Yeah, so right then, your prayer team. But the real confusing thing about the prayer team is how come the preacher, Pastor Signorelli, why didn't he just, before he starts preaching, say, "Dear God, I know there are a lot of people in need. There's people who are possessed or oppressed by demons. There are people who are sick that need healing. Please cast your healing powers upon them uh, and make them whole in Christ's name. Amen." And then get on with a sermon. Why do you need anything else? What could possibly happen in the crowd that would make you need something else? Are you running into the kind of demon that can only be cast out by performance? I'm not familiar with that kind of demon, but maybe you are. Sick people. You don't need a prayer team to pray for sick people. I just gave you a 20-second prayer. It may not have even lasted that long. Should have covered it. Why didn't we just do that? What the heck is a prayer team? And how's that better than you just saying a brief, sincere, loving prayer? I don't know. You don't either. You don't either. But what I do know is that is Christianity. That is right down the middle, mainstream, boots on the ground, butts in the pews Christianity. And why is it that more and more Christianity is sounding more and more like insanity? Am I the only one to notice that? skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com. Log in your Discuss account, discuss away. Send me an email, skepticsandseekers@gmail.com. Until next time, I will see you in the comments. And in the meantime, I'm out.